Hey, I want to take a few moments and continue down the road of 2 Chronicles 7:14 as we have been. The scripture says something in the way of, if my people will humble themselves, that will seek my face, and they will turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear them and I will heal their land. I want to take a few moments and just chat about this healing of the land. Now, we can take that in a few different ways. We can take that as an individual message, but also let's not forget the collective message that God is in the business of wanting to influence and change and intervene in the midst of this very moment, in the middle of our culture, in the middle of our situation. But I want to talk first about our individual approach of the healing of this land. For we have welcomed God into the dust, right? God made us from the dust of this body, and said, Lord, have your way. We've surrendered. We've submitted our way to God. And I just want to go ahead and look at a scripture in Exodus 15, about verse 22. And this story comes after Moses has, by the help of God, delivered the Israelites from the grip of the Egyptians. They've crossed the Red Sea. The Egyptians have drowned. And this very story comes just a few days after that experience, after this huge worship set of praise that God had healed, really provided this way of deliverance for people out of a notorious, horrible hands of dictatorship. But then 3 days later, they get a little thirsty and they get a little hungry, and Moses has this interaction with God. In verse 25, it said, Moses cried to Adonai, the Lord, and the Lord showed him a certain piece of wood, which, when he threw it into the water, made the water taste good, because they came to a bitter place. They were in a bitter condition, right? They couldn't drink the water, and their hearts were just not in a great place. In verse 26, it says this. He said, if you will listen intently to my voice, to the voice of the Lord your God, do what he considers right, pay attention to his mitzvahs, his laws, his regulations, his ideas, and observe his laws, I will not afflict you with any disease I brought on the Egyptians, because I am the Lord, your healer. That's who God is. Individually, God has called us to seek him, to apply what God is speaking to us, not to just hear it, but also apply it in our life. And in that condition and that response to his word, I believe there's healing, not only emotionally and mentally, but I also believe that there's a physical healing that God promises in his word, but it comes with simple obedience, to saying, Lord, you know what? We hear you, but we're also going to be obedient to what you're asking for us to do. Now, if you look at Numbers 12:13, you'll read the story of where Miriam, man, after a moment like this, she starts singing her own songs and kind of crosses the line of authority, and there's some disappointment and there's some sinning that goes on, and Miriam is given leprosy, or she receives leprosy, and man, she's in a really dire position. And in Numbers 12:13, Moses cries to the Lord and says, oh God, please heal her, please do it. And in that very moment, or a few days later, God steps in and heals his sister Miriam. See, I believe if we are going to be people who individually seek God, that it will have a collective effect. That in our healing, the culture and the world around and the position and the scenario that we're experiencing right now, man, the people, the collective group around us can receive healing, because God's original intent was to bless you so that you and I would be a blessing.